don't believe in the opportunity society. They don't believe in a meritocracy. And this is what they're trying to graft onto America. The same is true with our threats overseas and the problems that we're having. In having an administration who, instead of, even Bush, I think, was wrong in calling it a war on terror. We're not fighting terrorists. We're fighting people who have a theology to destroy Western civilization. Terror is not an ideology. It's a tactic. You can't be at war against a tactic. War against a group of people who have expressly vowed to destroy the United States of America, destroy Christendom. We don't like to say that. We get real weak in the knees. In fact, so weak that President Obama doesn't even call it terrorism. He calls it man-made disasters. We need to be honest with the American public of what we want to confront, or we're going to end up confronting a lot more than what we are today. Of course, there's the attack on faith and family, and we see it here with marriage. We see it in other states that have tried to deal with the marriage issue, and how anybody that stands up and opposes the redefinition of marriage is considered a bigot. Someone who speaks from the pulpit is considered hate speech. This is what we face, really an attack on religious liberty in this issue. And we have to be aware that that's exactly what is going on. And the attack on the family, from the popular culture, pounding away with sex and violence, incessantly corrupting the minds through video games and iPods, and just incessant corrupting. And then, of course, our educational system, where the government thinks that it's their duty to educate your children, instead of understanding that it's your duty and their job is to help you do your duty of educating your own child. And then, of course, we have the higher education system. 60% of children who go into higher education leave, who have faith, leave without their faith. The assault is overwhelming. I can understand how you sit here and say, how can we deal with all this? We're at a critical juncture in every aspect of our lives. And what I say to that is, thanks be to God that you're here. Thanks be to God that it's my watch that America needs people like us. Thanks be to God. I think of the time of the Israelites in the Old Testament. How many times did they stray? How many times did they just walk away from God? And it took great leaders to come. I always think of the prophet Isaiah, who heard from God. Whom shall I send? Who will go on my behalf? And so God asks that all of you today. Whom shall I send? Who will fight for me? Well, let me tell you, you'll go out and fight. You're fighting the marriage issue, and I understand. You failed. I tried it. I authored and fought for the Defense of Marriage, not the Defense of Marriage Act, the Federal Marriage Amendment. I carried it to the floor. I was the leader that forced the vote twice on the floor of the United States Senate. When I can tell you, most of my colleagues, even the ones who voted for it, didn't want us to vote on it. And we lost, not once, but twice. And I talked about partial birth abortion earlier. Great success? Not really. We lost in 1996. We lost again in 1998. It was found unconstitutional in 2000. And it wasn't until 2003, after 8 years, that we were able to be successful. And here's what I learned. Thank God we failed. What? Thank God we failed. You see, if Bill Clinton not vetoed that bill in 1995, no one in this room would have ever heard of a partial birth abortion. It would have been signed, and no one would have known any better. But he vetoed it, and we lost. And the New York Times had to report what a partial birth abortion was. had to show pictures of little babies in the hands of a physician and that baby being executed. The people who were the abortion providers had to go on Nightline and say, yes, abortion is the killing of a baby. Now that's no surprise to anybody here, but they had never said that before. And so we lost. In our plans, it was a disaster. But of course, God has other plans. And through our failure, for the first time since Roe versus Wade, attitudes on abortion changed in America. For the first time. Why? Because it became clear what abortion was taking the life of a child. I'll close with hopefully encouragement. Because you're going to be facing lots of battles. You're going to be out there fighting, whether it's at the crisis pregnancy centers or standing in front of abortion clinics, or fighting on the marriage amendment, or working for state legislative candidates, and you're not going to win them all. In fact, as you know, you probably end up losing more than you win when you talk about fighting in this culture. But let me assure you, if you are faithful, you will make a difference, and God will bless what you do. Let me give you an example of that happened to me in 1998 as I close. I was on the floor of the United States Senate again for 6 hours debating Barbara Boxer. I should win some sort of special commendation. 6 hours, 8 o'clock at night, we finished. The vote was the next morning. And it's just something inside. You know this. You felt this. Saying, I got to do more. Feeling called to do more. So I went back to the cloakroom and I called my wife. We just had our little girl, Sarah Maria, after Gabriel passed away in October. We had another baby the following December. This was September of 1998, so she was not even a year old. And I called and she was crying, and we had 3 other children under the age of 7. So she was a busy mom. And was home alone all day. And I called and said, you know, I feel like I need to stay a little longer and talk some more. She said what she always says. If that's what you feel called to do, then I'm there for you. So I went back out on the floor and I began to talk. I said I'd only be a few minutes. You get the sense of these things. I went for an hour and a half. Don't be afraid. Not that I couldn't, but I went. An hour and a half. And I finished. I felt this sense that maybe we were 3 votes short. Maybe one of these senators, because everybody was gone, maybe one of these senators or 2 were watching me on C-SPAN. And somehow that I touched them with these stories of these little children who the world wanted to abort, but whose parents fought for their lives. Yes, they had to fight for their lives to be born because they were not perfect in the eyes of medicine. And so I told story after story. The next morning we had the votes. We lost by 3 votes. And when I finished, everybody filed out. I sat there in my chair. And I thought, you prideful person, you. How dare you think that what you could do, you can make a difference. And so what did you do? You stood like a peacock in front of C-SPAN cameras for an hour and a half while your wife put the children to bed, tucked everybody in, and you came home and they were asleep, and when you left, they were still asleep.